can see you are not such a mystery to me.
Activist and singer Jen Chapin was one of the guest speakers at the Huntington Cinema Arts Center, the site for a discussion with the authors and contributors of the book The Living Memories Project, which aims to share and learn how others keep alive, in both practical and spiritual ways, the memory of lost loved ones.
About survival and the one thing you should know.
All proceeds from the event went to Long Island Cares, Long Island's first food bank, founded in 1980 by activist and singer Harry Chapin.
Pretty much anytime anybody asks me about my dad, which is frequently, it's the natural expression of memorializing him for me is being active in the fight for food justice.
To have the authors focus in part on Harry's legacy and to in turn focus in on the organization that Harry Chapin founded 34 years ago, in my opinion, is not only very special and appropriate, but very meaningful. Certainly meaningful for Long Island because the authors of the book are Long Islanders, and for Long Island Cares to be selected as the beneficiary of tonight's rollout of the book is very, very special to us, and we're very happy to take part in it.
I lost both my mother and my father within a year and a half, and especially after I lost my mother was my best friend, my sounding board. I was just bereft, and I was looking for solace, and I looked for books on grieving, and my mother was a very optimistic, cheerful person, and I couldn't find anything that was optimistic and cheerful and that really gave you the tools to go on. So I had this idea of speaking to people and finding out what they do to keep the presence of their loved ones in their lives after they're gone.
There are many great stories in here from people who found things to do that had meaning for them because they reflected who their loved ones had been.
My sister called me and said, "I'd like you to be involved in the project." She was having a lot of trouble getting beyond our mother's death, and I could see it was important to her. So I've been a writer for about 30 years, so I got involved.
Some of the projects were very interesting. Like we spoke to Nick Clooney, who is the father of George Clooney and the brother of Rosemary and Betty Clooney, the singers. And he told us that he wanted to make sure that he kept their memory alive through different projects. So every year there's a Rosemary Clooney Music Festival in Ohio, and there's a Betty Clooney Foundation. George Clooney got an idea from his grandfather about being socially active and socially conscious, and that's why he has these projects with Darfur.
My father was an actor. Although we have a lot of films and memorabilia from him, I really wanted to perpetuate his name and his career. My father had a unique background, a unique past, a unique profession.
For this you'll have to be a King Solomon and not less.
Loss, leaves a void, and it's usually tinged with sadness. And yet we do remember the better things after we get over the initial grief, and we want to perpetuate that. We want to think about all the good things that happen.
Tony Randall and Jack Klugman were good friends. They had worked many years on television together, The Odd Couple and whatnot. So I called Jack Klugman. He's passed now, but this project has been in the works for about 5 or 6 years. So I called him and said, "How do you remember Tony Randall?" So he said, "I put up his picture all over the house. And every time I look at one of the pictures, I remember where we were and what we did." And that's a real simple way to remember somebody, and it's a good project.
We have a couple, Liz and Steve Alderman, whose son was killed on 9/11 in the World Trade Center. He was 25 years old. And they created a foundation in his memory, in his name, where they go all over the third world setting up mental health clinics to treat victims of post-traumatic stress disorder.
My father's buried here in Huntington, but I can't say I have time to really go to his gravesite because I'm tending to his living memory, his living legacies, and that doesn't feel like duty. It feels like passion and joy and a natural part of me.
Well, what we found in speaking to people was that by doing something, they were able to channel their grief into something positive, and that provided a great deal of comfort to people.
Turn away, turn away.
Meryl said her mother would say, find a project. And that's really it. That will get you through the grief. That will get you to connecting with things that are outside your own head and the circles we all go round and round in, to then connecting with life and what's happening right now and how we can help each other.
For more on the Living Memories Project, go to thelivingmemoriesproject.com. For information on Long Island Cares, go to licares.org. For Push Pause in Huntington, this is Greg Blank.
Is find your joy and let it show.